Welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Solberg, and today we are going to talk about a sad story, and it's the story of Gannon Stauch. We're going to look at the current trial going on for Leticia Stauch and just talk through some of the facts and some of the opinions that I have on the case. So like I said at the beginning, this is definitely a really sad story, especially for young Gannon, who was only 11 years old and ended up meeting his demise in January 2020. I do want to point out that when the coroner took the stand and we're talking about the autopsy, they did say that there were some wounds that were consistent with Gannon defending himself against his attacker. And I got to say that that's pretty noble, because what we find out in that autopsy is pretty unreal. Even further, what we find out about Leticia through this trial is absolute insanity. And I'm curious to hear from you folks. Do you think that Leticia is going to get off based off of an insanity plea, or do you think that the jury is going to see through that and find her guilty? So that's where I want you to leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. I also will encourage you. There is a lot of facts in this trial. I'm only trying to hit the ones that have stood out to me. If there's some stuff that you think stood out and that I missed, please put that down below as well. It's a lot to cover, and I definitely need your folks' help to get all the information out there. So first thing that we know about that autopsy is that there was hydrocodone in the liver of Gannon, which meant at some point drugs had entered his system. Now, my opinion would say that Leticia at some point was trying to either poison little Gannon or was trying to do something to really put him out of it. Now, did that work or did that not work? It's hard to say. Now, we do know that Gannon had some wounds that were consistent with him defending himself, and that was really great to hear. He was a fighter, fought all the way. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out in his favor as the cards were stacked against him. Now, little Gannon was hit 4 times with blunt force trauma. Little Gannon was stabbed 18 times. And then little Gannon was shot once. So just think about that. How much violence did it take to kill little Gannon? Whether you're insane, whether you're crazy, whether, I don't know at this point. I don't know why people do what they do. Very similar to Lori Vallow, with the exception of Lori Vallow being the biological mother and Leticia being the step monster. Why do people do this to little kids? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And again, 4 times was he hit hard. 18 times was he stabbed, and once was he shot. The level of violence that took on an 11-year-old just screams hate. Doesn't scream crazy. It doesn't scream insanity. It screams jealousy. It screams hate. And it screams like that has been planned. And anything less than a first-degree verdict would do no justice for little Gannon. What I found interesting in all of this case, and I know it's not in order, but when I was reading and watching the testimony of the phone call with Al Stauch and Leticia, that was a very chilling phone call when Leticia kept saying, hey, you know, I will tell you everything you want to hear. I just need to be offered immunity. Now, those weren't word for word. That's basically how I interpreted it. But she said a few times that she was looking for immunity, and if she got immunity, she would, come forward with more information. She didn't say at any point that she was going to confess, but she said that she would have a little bit more information, right? And that to me was just a chilling part of this case, knowing everything that we knew and a lot of assumptions going into the case based off of the arrest affidavit was that we thought, or I thought personally, right, that Leticia had no question had done this crime. Now, obviously, she's not saying she didn't, but when you hear the evidence that's being put forward, it is absolute insanity what happened to this little boy. And what's even crazier is how Leticia was trying to puppet master everyone around her, right? So the first thing is basically reporting Gannon missing and coming up with the story that he went and played video games over at a friend's house and never came home. So she had to think that story up. Another piece that leads me to believe that she thinks she's smarter than what the jurors are is that really working with her biological daughter, Harley, to try to remain quiet when the police went over to the house to essentially interview Harley and see what was going on. And we saw on the stand that Harley, admitted that she didn't want to talk to police. Now, do keep in mind that that is her right not to talk with authorities and to ask for a lawyer. And in most cases, that's the right thing to do, no matter what the situation is. But it was just kind of weird that she was being told that by Leticia, and then she goes and does that, right? That tells me that Leticia wasn't insane at all. That tells me she was in her right mind, but what she was trying to do was kind of puppet master everything. Another interesting fact is the windows being open in the wintertime after what we would assume was after the body was transferred. We don't know that for sure. You can interpret that any way you want based off of the case and what you see on the stand, but that is just odd behavior. And a lot of folks, if you go in the forums, they're calling it out. They're putting their opinions on there, and their opinions are that the body was in the house for a little while, and that's why Leticia was airing it out. Another piece that I found interesting was just Leticia's half-brother coming on the stand and saying that he noticed Leticia carrying a suitcase that seemed very heavy, and going back, he was thinking that that was Gannon in the suitcase, and he calls Leticia out and asks her in open court, why did she do it, right? Again, she's not saying that she didn't. The defense came forward and they're not saying that she didn't commit the crime, but they're really going after this insanity defense. And I just don't know if it's going to work based off of what we've seen so far. You know what was another interesting fact that really kind of stood out to me? And when we heard this in the trial, it was like, I can't believe people do this. This in itself tells me that Leticia wasn't crazy or insane or anything like that. And that was the fact that she reached out to fakepolygraph.com to get them to do a polygraph on her so she could utilize that to tell everybody that she passed a polygraph test. Now, I don't know what world that this lady lives in, right? How would this work? Like you print off a polygraph and you show everybody. At some point, the authorities are going to want to see this, and the authorities are going to ask her to do a polygraph of their own. And what is she going to deny them and then use that for the lawyers? Either way, that just screams to me that there is no insanity going on here. There was no craziest going on here, and that there was premeditation. And that to me would lead to first degree. One of the things that the judge had to talk to Leticia about was the fact that she was, giving weird looks and then putting up her middle finger as they were testifying. And I thought it was interesting when you hear the judge just talk about, in many cases, the defendant doesn't like the folks that are testifying against them, and they might not like what they have to say either, but it is important to her and the defense team that she keeps her gestures and her facial expressions to herself. And he did point out that it was a juror that brought that forward to him, and the jurors don't miss anything, and that's not really helping her case. And I thought that was a really interesting fact, because I don't know what she's trying to do, if she's genuinely unhappy or if she read somewhere that this is going to give the jury, the inclination that maybe she is insane or maybe she is crazy. So, lots of stuff going on in this case that I think is going to be very important. So on that note, I want to hear from you folks. What have you taken from this case? What are some of the facts that are just standing out there that are disturbing to you? And what are some of the things that you didn't think going into this trial that you heard that just left chills down your spine? I want to hear from you. Put those comments down below. For the folks that haven't subscribed yet, we just hit 150. We hit 50 more subs last month. That is awesome. We're trending up. So hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg. See you on the next video.